You know how it is. YouTube and its bureaucracy of
Conspiracy.
Yeah, it's all conspiracy, man. Like, it's a actually I love that YouTube like outbreak.
I was just playing the intro to the game. Do you have any Pepsi or Coca-Cola on side, Doug, to be able to do that deep intro of Earthworm Jim?
Okay, let's see what I can do. I know I can't do the whole thing because that one
there's this platform thing going on right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there you're. Okay, yeah, we're live now. Yeah, it's
I think we're live.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're live.
We're live.
Hey, with Tommy Tallarico recording me burping, and it blew out the microphone. Earthworms. Oh, that's all I got.
There's a bit of a bum note there. So
I haven't even tried that in years. So, you have to fully inhale your lungs, and then you have to like parse out the burp slowly. It's almost like trying to make a fart last longer. You can't just like, full blunt. You have to like clench and very gently, slowly squeeze it all out in the burp. And it's a skill. It's an art. I haven't done it in forever.
I think what it is just like it's your cartoonist nature, like just coming out through the entirety of like Earthworm Jim, and you're like, well, what kind of character would I want to create, and like what specifically stands up for Earthworm Jim, and you're like, yeah, no, this voice is perfect.
Yeah, I don't remember how we decided on that one because a lot of stuff was group decision stuff, but I can't imagine. They probably heard me try it once, and Tommy Tallarico is probably the one that said, "Yeah, we're going to use that in the game," because it's an expensive percentage of the cartridge if you know what goes into digitized voice. That cost a lot to put that in the game as far as memory goes toward the game.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, I remember because I was looking at some of like the design notes, and I know how hard it was for you guys to switch it over to like SNES. You guys had to like literally remove like animation frames and stuff like that just for it to fit on the cart, as compared to what because the Sega could actually handle the audio samples better. And stuff like that.
And so this is a tiny team. Shiny was a tiny startup, and I'm documenting all of this for the first time in this book as far as like the entire front to back story of it's not just Earthworm Jim. But it's kind of how we got together. It goes into the pre-story before we met each other because there's all these weird events that happened for us to even come together. And then following after Earthworm Jim to now, I did a bunch of interviews. 2 months ago, 25 years after the team broke up, we got back together to work on that in television thing. And just kind of had like a reunion, and I talked to a lot of the guys about it that I had no idea behind the scenes was happening as I was applying at Shiny to get in, which is what where they almost could have decided one way or another to not even do Earthworm Jim. It was what it's meant to them for their career since then. So I've gotten the before, during, and after of the whole story, and for the first time in one volume. So, and what's weird is as I shook out information from where we all came from, Rudy, that actually was kind of the deciding factor to do the game.
So did you have any involvement in the TV show too, or?
Yeah, I was an exec producer on the show. So I did a lot of the character designs, and I was there at all the records and would approve scripts and stuff like that. But it was really kind of an introduction where they knew I was, I was the guy that would drive in, and I was the creator of everything. So they wanted to be respectful to me, but I didn't have actual like legal authority to tell them like, you know. Yeah, it wasn't like that. And the show probably would have been a lot worse if I did have that kind of control. I just kind of met, and I would talk to people, and they would say, what do you think this character would look like? And I would do my quick drawing of it. I'd go, well, try this. And about 95% of the time they went with my work. Oftentimes, not even because it was the best idea, but just because they were under the gun and they didn't have a brain to think about this stuff. So they just kind of just slammed it in the show.
Oh yeah.
Are you quite a hands-on person with that kind of...
very much. In fact, all the way across. This is when I was younger, so This is 94, so I'm 28 years old, and very, you know, no kids. I'm married, but no kids. And so you're driving from Orange County up to LA, which is like an hour drive to the studio to work on, say, a record. They would record all the voices, or do script notes, which was all like done over fax machines and email and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Was it was kind of normal and fine, but it wasn't. The show's budget was one of the cheapest budgets I've worked on in my whole life. So that's why the animation is so crappy in the TV series. Like, it is one of the lowest budgets on TV.
You know, like I remember, because I went back to rewatch some of the old episodes just because I remember really liking it as a kid. And like the thing is, the jokes are still solid. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But like you really do notice the animation nowadays, especially with like how fluid it's become over the years. And you realize, oh well, how much more money goes into animation these days as compared to back in the day.
Yeah,
You're
back
like,
then, all those mid-90s shows were so bad. You know, they do like the Richie Rich show or the Beethoven show or some knockoff licensed toy line, Biker Mice from Mars.
Oh, I used to love that show as a kid.
Yeah, Street Sharks, another one. Just
Street Sharks is actually terrible to watch.
It is. These are the trashiest low-budget shows. Literally just made to sell toy lines and cereal and stuff. They're like giant commercials.
Shocking George.
Hold up though.
Every once in a while, you're gonna get like something that's you're gonna get a magical experience with these really bad, like low budget shows, because then there's a point where Street Sharks and Extreme Dinosaurs are not doing so good, and they're like, let's mash them together, and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll put them together. But that's back when. So that's also a natural outcome of the studio system back in the 90s, where they would like it would be ABC Saturday morning or CBS, the big three would broadcast cartoons, right? That whole network on broadcast was their business model was not to survive based on being a great cartoon company, right? Because they'd do the Super Bowl during the week or whatever. Whereas the cable companies like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, that was their bread and butter. That was when the production, and Disney Channel, that was when the money started going into the shows and they started upping the quality, because they really did, their whole identity was the cartoon. So that's what put the money in it, was when cable got involved, and that really turned a corner for all of animation for what.
Actually, like, because I really still love cartoons even to this day. I think I can, like, things like Earthworm Jim and like Felix the Cat and the Bugs Bunny cartoons, stuff like that. Those old cartoons.
Ren and Stimpy.
Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, I love old what we enjoy today. Better television animation is because it got off the broadcast and onto cable, where the quality meant something to their logo and their brand.
Oh yeah, like
Ren and Stimpy. Ooh.
So there's a funny story with Ren and Stimpy, is that when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch it. I was like, I don't know, 5 years old or something.
Yeah.
My sister's like 10 years older than me, and so her boyfriend at the time was like, "Shit, you're just watch the shows or whatever." So my mom gave me a whole bunch of old tapes or whatever to digitize on the computer for like family videos and stuff. And there's literally a video of me. It's the camera's has a shot on Ren and Stimpy, and then it pans over, and I'm just like chilling on the couch like this, like 5 years old, and then pans back, and I showed it to my mom, and I was like, "Can't grab me now." She's like,
So I got to do the Ren and Stimpy game. That was my first, one of my early animation leads. Yeah, this is probably a year or two before I met the Shiny guys. I did the Genesis. I was the lead on the Genesis version of Ren and Stimpy.
Wow.
Oh man,
so
I remember playing that.
So that was we got access to first season right after it came out, the entire first season on tape. And all of the storyboards, any scripts or any dialogue that was written out, all of the John K. notes and all that stuff, we got to see all of it for that first season before the show came out.
Is John K. as much of a perfectionist as like they say he is?
Yeah, he is. That guy's nuts. He's really, and I really respect his passion, right? So he's done, you know, he is an epic legend. I mean, he was obsessive about Bob Clampett, was probably his biggest influence. And so there's a huge break between when those Clampett cartoons were made in the 50s and then today, where many of the animators that work in television are animation men past, and the new kind of present way things are done. These guys were the ones who brought it into the future. So John Kay, he cut his teeth he was doing the Smurfs in '82, illiterate. Like they don't even know like what was going through the head of Tex Avery and Chuck Jones and all the greats, right? John Kay was one of the bridges between, and same thing with Glenn Keane at Disney is one of the bridges between. He was on the Smurfs.
Oh wow!
He did that. He did the Batman and Robin animated series as just some kid grunt, right? And then suddenly in the late '80s, he was working for Ralph Bakshi doing the Mighty Mouse cartoons. Which, if you guys haven't seen Ralph Bakshi's Mighty Mouse,
oh, I have to watch Ralph Bakshi because I had a whole stun where I was watching all kinds of Ralph Bakshi cartoons.
Yeah.
Like I watched Fritz the Cat. I watched.
Yeah. But those are like porn, right? You can't share those with your friends. But Mighty Mouse was broadcast on television. Yeah. So watch Ralph Bakshi's Mighty Mouse. I think is the only good thing he's ever even made.
I would argue Wizards is pretty fun though. Like,
dude, it's bad.
I mean, it's trippy, but it's fun.
It's trippy. The Mighty Mouse series that he did, which John Kay was his main guy on, is. I think we were in college. This is 84 to 88. I was in college. So this is right around 86, 87, 88. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen in my life. It is good. It is really good. And another board artist on that show was Jeff Pigeon, who now is one of the big guys at Pixar on, I think he did the Fort guy or whatever on Toy Story 4. So Jeff Pigeon was working under John Kay and Ralph Bakshi back in those days too. So that's kind of like my big tribute to John Kay. Is he is so passionate and so great at animation, and then it's all of our personal failings and foibles and stuff like that that screw our lives up. But I have a lot of respect for him keeping a very important art form alive with passion, and he's a natural teacher. So he would get crews of kids together and it was like school all day. School. Animation school.
Oh yeah, like well, I think what it is that drive for a passion for perfection is probably one of the things that like John Kay is really well known for, and I can't deny it. Like I actually can't deny that that what he stood for, like, because he's still one of the only voices I can think of that like still speaks to classical animation, and
loved humor.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He was, and he was even wrong about some humor choices, but his whole style was, and he would tell his crew all the time, if the drawing's funny, it goes in, and I don't care if it's off model. Like he was chasing the joke. And so that was a real big influence on Earthworm Jim, was the crew, Mike Dietz and Ed Schofield and I, we would watch Ren and Stimpy cartoons all the time. I mean, I remembered stealing run cycles that he did. I mean, we'd steal from Disney run cycles also, characters running and stuff, but it was like we were in animation school while we were working on Earthworm Jim. While we were working at Shiny, we would all kind of get together and watch videos, one frame at a time, and share drawings. We were all learning, and Mike Dietz was way better than all of us because he probably was the most disciplined about it and took them all serious. So we'd always give him all the run cycles, which is the most popular, animation in the game. You'd always give the heavies to him.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember some of the older interviews that you had where I remember correctly, you said like you had to create like a run cycle for Earthworm Jim to even get like inside of the Shiny studio, wasn't it?
So I presented Earthworm Jim to the Shiny guys before I got my job. I did a 12-frame walk cycle. Yeah. And so the 12-frame walk cycle was based on the Sword and the Stone. I went through the tape and did it frame by frame of the wizard, the way he walks like this, and his hat is flopping up and down.
Yeah.
And so I made Earthworm Jim's, the worm part of him with the flop.
Yeah.
And I'd bring in that 12-frame walk cycle because they just wanted to prove from a bottom end that you could animate. They didn't want to see deluxe animator frames. They wanted to see paper animation. That's Mike Dietz, who's a total animation snob.
Yeah.
And so I'd done a bunch of animation in television. I started in '91 on Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And I just remembered I wanted this. And that was when I first presented Earthworm Jim to them. And they said, I think this guy is it. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they were right.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is in the making of book.
I was gonna get fired from Shiny from Virgin after the Shiny team left. I was gonna get fired. So I was just like, for my life trying to get this job. And I brought in that walk cycle.
It, but
Sure.
are you able, or maybe you're not able to mention it, but do you have what sort of inspired you to create, like, in the creation of Earthworm Jim?
Sure, it's all I do. Like every day is, for me, the fun part is the world building and creating characters, so that I fart out Earthworm Jims every day. Like they're just different characters. You've never heard of them because they weren't in the greatest game ever made. That's a common question, and it's hard to fully nail down because, in a way, if I showed you my studio, my archives back there, it's just hundreds of characters that I come. So it was one of those weird right place at the right time where, and they said, like, okay, come up with something. This was on a Friday. They said, come up with something and bring it in on Monday. That was going to be my big job interview.
Wow.
Because we have an animation slot open at Shiny. And I was not their first pick. I was like third pick. But I was real good friends with Ed Schofield, the other animator, who's Mike Dietz's friend also. So Ed was trying to work me in. And we were both Christians. So he was always like we were doing the secret handshake. And he's going like, Doug, this is your time, brother. You got to nail it. Or, I can't tell all the Shiny guys to hire you if they disagree. So he passed on the word that I need to come up with a character, bring in a walk cycle. And they were going to see if I was creative enough to get on at Shiny. And so that next Saturday, I woke up, and that was when I created Earthworm Jim. And in 45 minutes, I created Earthworm Jim, Psychro, Professor Monkey for a head, the Queen, Major Mucus. And I'd already created Evil the Cat back in '91. I brought him in. And I did the walk cycle for Earthworm Jim across that day, but I actually did all of the creating for everything I brought in 45 minutes. And then I spent the rest of the weekend on a 12-frame walk cycle. And I brought it in on Monday and got the job.
It's amazing. Like just to be able to have all that, quick creation process. And I love like just a few questions because I want to because you remind me, was Evil the Cat kind of based off of a very similar kind of like sketch style designs, kind of like similar to like Courage the Cowardly Dog? I know like Courage the Cowardly Dog like takes place after because it came out after.
Way after.
Yeah, but like if you take a look, it's like very much based off of like those old kind of screen paintings and that old scratchy art style. And when I look at the cat, it's just like very similar kind of style almost.
I have no idea where that thing came from. It's one of those doodles where the shapes looked so cool because I have influences. Dr. Seuss is a big influence on me. Probably in the late 80s, there was a lot of black and white Dark Horse independent comics that were kind of the 80s punk rock badass stuff was going around. That was a big influence on me at that time.
Yeah.
I have no idea where that character came from, but it looked, Evil the Cat always looked cool from that first sketch I did of him. And it's like, I can't tell you, it's not a planned thing that I'm building up here and suddenly I create it and there it is, I willed it into being. They're much more like you just spew stuff down and you try things out and then you look at a couple of characters going like even with Evil the Cat and Earthworm Jim, there's times where I can't draw them right. So like I'm the guy that came up with them and I can't draw them right. So how did I come up with that long ago? I don't entirely get it. So I don't know what Evil the Cat was based on. I know that a lot of it had to do with my own fascination with kind of weird black and white films. I was real into Citizen Kane at the time that I created him. That's a really dark film.
I love Citizen Kane.
Yeah, film noir was a big influence on me. Eraserhead, Lynch films were a big influence on me. So I was probably just looking to create something really kind of weird and alien looking.
Well, I mean, it worked because Evil the Cat is probably one of the more iconic designs from the series. Because, like, I think what really works is like all the designs are just like really stand out. But then when you meet Evil the Cat, you're like, well, something's just off about this. He doesn't look like he belongs, but that's what makes it so wonderful.
Yeah, it just works on a very weird gut level, and I don't understand. I can't even tell you exactly what makes them work. So it just does.
No, I think that's the best part about it. Like, even if like the creator themselves can't fully answer it, it just means that it works on a more like a subconscious level. I think more than anything else.
Yeah, like why doesn't he have a bottom jaw? He just has it makes no sense. Like, and I might not have even ever. I don't know if I ever drew anything like that before, where there's no bottom jaw. It doesn't make any sense. Why do his legs not function? They're just like little nubs that stick out like a beanbag. It makes no sense, and so. And then his tail, which is like a rat tail, and it looks like Earthworm Jim's head. It almost looks like an earthworm. Like it's a redundant design that normally you wouldn't put on a character. You give him a regular cat tail so that it doesn't conflict or borrow too much from Earthworm Jim's head.
Yeah,
it's just like it doesn't make sense. There it is.
Like nothing about it like makes sense, but I think that's part of what the appeal of the character, right? It's all these things that don't make sense, and then just like combine together to make almost in a weird sense make sense.
Yeah. So Nick Broody is he's the main guy. He's the big game designer at Shiny, right? Nick Broody is the king of game design.
Oh yeah,
a fine Englishman or Irish. I don't know what Broody is.
It doesn't matter.
He and I have always
the English, they don't matter.
He's funny and he's drunk all the time. No, he is really, really funny too. We always got along really well. But he was the one that when he saw Evil the Cat, he said, "I want that one. That one's mine, and I'm gonna do the where he lives." The heck just kind of cobbled together. But Broody is one of the big reasons why Earthworm Jim got made, and certainly why Evil the Cat was the second level, because we couldn't start the game in Heck, right, for commercial reasons level. I said, well, of course there's going to be lawyers in hell or the bad guys. And Ed Schofield, the animator, said, well, of course Snowball's chance in hell, so there's going to be a snowman's going to be the main boss. And that's kind of how this stuff, starting a character screaming in hell. So it was one of our most beautiful levels because Nick Broody was so on fire about it. So we had to make it level 2. So level 1, New Junk City, went to Steve Crow, and then level 2, Evil the Cat went into Heck in level 2.
I think it was today, I was just watching, just sort of to remind me, and I was watching those first 2 levels, and I thought I saw it was a lawyer. Just you see this guy in a suit and trench coat, and his hat falls off with some, when you kill him, his sort of files of paper.
His papers all fly everywhere. And that was from an old joke I did where I said all lawyers are in hell.
Oh man,
and,
we shouldn't let Nick know, man.
Yeah. So my new comic is going to have
one of your only few chances you're going to get to pick this up, because this is as Doug told us earlier, this is like sort of a limited time run of the comic itself, and you're going to be getting if you want to pick it up now, because it's probably going to be on eBay later.
In the third act, you go down to Heck, and Evil's in there, and there's lawyers all over the place. So it's my tribute to the game.
Oh, nice! I love it. Well, I mean, for anyone who is curious, we have the Indiegogo link in the description there. If you want to support the comic, this is your only chance to down that line.
I did. So my last book was Bigfoot Bill, and I was selling those. They're hardbound, 9x12, really nice books, and I was selling those for $25 each, same as this Earthworm Jim book, $25 each. And because they're not available in store, like I don't put them in stores, I have very limited print run. These are like very boutique kind of psycho collector Earthworm fans. The Bigfoot Bill book, it regularly goes for $200 or more on eBay. So you pay $25, you can flip them for, because I'm not going to publish them through a real publisher. I'm loyal to the crazy fans out there. So Earthworm Jim, it's $25 for the comic book, which is 160 pages. And then there's another tier where you can get the comic book and the making of. And that's where I went back and interviewed all the guys on the team. And I'm telling the entire story of how we got together. And the photographs are the portraits of the team are by Dave Perry, did photo portraits of all of us. And I just interviewed all the guys. And it's just like pages and pages of back information, secret stuff never before told. That is the end all be all Earthworm Jim book, making of book.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, I think the key to keeping you guys together was Dave Perry. I mean, like, that guy, he clearly had a passion not only to make a game but to make a franchise. You could definitely tell.
He was the businessman. He was, as far as he was just there. I mean, that whole company existed because of him. Leaving Virgin was because of him, and he is, and he was obsessive about quality. Wallet.
Yeah,
he's one of the most aggressive, brilliant businessmen there is. And there's, we were all just artists or programmers and just operating on a totally different level than he. Like, the game has to be perfect. It has to be really high-minded, really aggressive, really tight, and just he really knew how to get the controllers to work what they would call sexy.
Yeah.
Or not wooden. Wooden was the big insult. That's wooden. That's wooden. Yeah. That's wooden. So you play Bubsy, a great character, but you play Bubsy and it's like wooden, the controls. So you throw them down. Battletoads, wooden. Boogerman, wooden. And then you play Earthworm Jim or Cool Spot or Global Gladiators or any of the past shiny games, Aladdin, smooth, sexy, intuitive controls.
Oh yeah, man. Like,
it's Dave Perry.
Like, you want those. You want that. Like, people would talk about those. It's like, you want that. You want that sexy control. You want it to feel like there is that argument. It's the argument of, like, it feels like sex. It feels pure. It feels raw. It feels good, right? And that's what you want. You want, like, there's the argument of, okay, was the level bad or am I just bad? And if you can make the argument, no, I'm just bad at the level. I need to get good.
Right. That's right.
Well, I think the thing is that I've seen games before where it's just like, it's almost like the challenge is trying to actually play the game because like the controls are bad, and it's like Switch said, am I bad or is the game bad? And it's like, the game's bad. Like, their challenge is that they didn't make a really good game, and now you have to try to hit the button as quickly as possible or hold it in or whatever just to get the guy to move or whatever.
Yeah, you got to fake it in. The other thing key to Dave Perry is he respected artists. So it doesn't matter how good your artists are if they're not respected. So he not only was aggressive with business, but he was probably worked the closest with Mike Dietz, the animator, and Mike would have Dave's ear. Like, he was like his trusted right-hand man. And Mike Dietz would say, like, we have to devote much more of the cartridge to graphics than you normally do, or we have to hold on to to put this animation in. So Dave Perry doesn't know a thing about animation, but he would go to his animator and say, like, teach me what makes this work and why. And Mike would say, see, if you turn a drawing like this and you have a hand turning in space and you have more frames to turn it, then it, in the mind to the viewer, it looks more animated. And Dave would sit there and listen, right? And then Mike would say, this is how we can translate the drawings and have it work with your game code. And Mike teaches can also really understand more of the tech handoff. And Dave Perry was there trying to understand more of the art handoff and then make it a priority at the company, even though he's all code and all about money, and say, no, I'm going to make Mike happy by putting more of the art in. And then, so Earthworm Jim wouldn't be as artistic of a game without Dave Perry being the money man, right? Because usually it's the money man that comes in and says, nope, we're cutting all the edges off so I can make more money. And we're going to make all these compromises and the art. People don't care about art. Just put boobies in it instead. It's like, so his sensibility of having a really deep grasp of and love of animation and trying to get into Mike Dietz's head, and then Mike being able to get that handoff is also a rare quality that you just didn't find at other companies, and it's why Earthworm Jim happened.
I think that it's like a combination. You really have to have this business sense and this artistic sense to be able to say no, and it has to be artistic.
Absolutely, has to be the best.
I've seen art things where it's like they had no business sense and just it's great art, but it just failed because no business sense. And some things, a lot of things these days are, where do I draw the line? And like, okay, yeah, we need it to be artistic, but we also, you know, we're putting it out there as a business too. But at the same time, kind of draw the line as, well, you know, to make money, it has to be good, printed, but sort of lack on the art front. So
yeah, you usually have one or the other. And that's the other thing is we were all workaholics. So when does that happen where there's not some artist going, I got to take the weekend off or whatever? None of us really had families. You know, we were married, but not with kids or anything. So we would work 18-hour days. Where do you find a job where 8 to 10 guys will work 18-hour days every day?
Jeez.
Yeah, like
I mean, it was insane. So that's the other thing is you didn't have artists going, I don't feel it today. I don't feel it. There was no feeling talk among the artists. We were like brutal, ruthless, hardcore workaholics around the clock. We would go in there and just bury it.
The original.
I think that's the biggest problem we run into in a lot of like art industries today, right? It's the easy way out type of art industry that we run into. Not that there aren't great ones. Like take a look at like recently I rewatched Gravity Falls. Amazing show. You can tell after like you play like something like Steven Universe, which like it's like at the start you can tell that passion was there, and then like right around season 3, season 4, you can tell it's like just phone it in. We don't care anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So those are all
put a lot of effort into making that show.
Oh, it's a great show. My kids love that show.
Yeah, like I mean, and I recently rewatched it. It was like this fantastic. The animation's fantastic. You can tell whoever worked on that show put the blood, sweat, and tears into it. But it's just like, from that
too of big money getting into the animation industry.
Oh yeah.
What we were doing with games, it was so cheap. You know what we were trying to do. You're always trying to double your budget by just working on it twice as long in the same time frame. Is how we double our budget.
I mean, when games came out in the 90s, you know, they were polished, finished, done and dusted. There was no room for post-launch patches and updates. And so what's your like opinion on like the current direction that the modern video game industry is at the moment?
Well, I can barely recognize the modern game industry from what we were doing back then. So probably the indie game industry is more of what we were experiencing. You'd call it an indie game industry today, like little startups and little Kickstarter campaigns and things like that. Because I play all these games with my kids today, and it's insane. Like in fact, it breaks my head open when I think of the amount of work that goes into it. I don't even know how you'd make that. I don't know how you do that. I've got a buddy he's a programmer on Anthem, and he just said, Doug, it is like a city working on a game. Like imagine designing, you know, having 30 programmers with their code interacting with each other. It is like so top down, flowed and assigned. You know, just kind of you work on this piece and we'll slot it in. And this guy, you know, here's your big crew of texture mappers, and here's your crew of riggers and stuff like that. It's like, it's so huge. It has to be run top down for it to work at all. And ours was much more a team. It was a team thing.
Like the thing is, it's impressive. But you know what? The thing is I don't mind the AAA games that come out. Like some of them are good, some of them are not so good. It depends on the game. But like, I find myself usually appreciating the indie stuff a bit more. It's there. Like people try to make a controversy when they put like a graffiti of like the trans like one of the levels, but it's like so out of the way it doesn't take away from the game. It's like
who cares?
Exactly. Like I had a great time playing this game. I don't care if some of the graffiti's there because like one of the artists. Like,
Me too.
Like I recently last year picked up Hat in Time, and I still love that game even to today because like you can feel like sure it's a smaller team, but like it's like you can put that again. We talked about the blood, sweat, and tears earlier, but that's there, right? You just want to put a graffiti sign in there. That's normal. Like they have JonTron in one of the levels, like voice acting one of the characters. It's like clearly there's different people, different political views in this game. They don't care. Yeah. They're putting little Easter eggs for the people who appreciate those type of things. Not
my thing on all those politics, and you guys already know. I mean, your show will get hit just for me being on here. Because the woke SJWs, man, they do not want me. They don't want me touched by you. So the people who are into just chasing the game is, if someone made, put all those pro-trans signs or pro-whatever, anti-Christian signs and stuff, I just gave all of you guys hepatitis.
Oh no! I can feel it. It's boiling up, right?
Yeah. But the bottom line is, my first thing. This is the difference probably between people who are more into the woke. My first question isn't what ideology is going on here. My first question is this a quality game? Because it claims to be a game, or it claims to be a comic, or it claims to be a movie, or it claims to be a car, or whatever. And I go, what's the quality of the car?
Yeah.
And then the secondarily you ask, well, what's it about? And so I have a certain level of respect for what the thing is first. And the woke SJW crowd are always like, what is the ideology first, either of the object or of the team member that made it? And then I use my money to vote on people who agree with me, and then I withdraw it from people I don't agree with.
Yeah,
is the difference.
I mean, it's as simple as this, and I hate to say this, because I still think everybody should go and fund your or support your campaign.
Absolutely.
But it's as simple as this, though. If you don't want it, don't buy it.
That's right.
It's as simple as that. If you really hate it for whatever reason, it could be because it has an ice cream cone in it and whatever. But you don't even need a reason, just an ice cream cone.
I think that's the biggest criticism that the majority of gamers actually have with the video game journalist industry is they go, gamers are saying, so what is the game about? And the journalists are all just going on about, oh, is this progressive? Is this woke? Is it pandering to my personal politics and identity politics? And that's what pisses gamers off. We're like, because it's again and again and again, every single game you read articles in Polygon and Kotaku, the usual suspects.
They've all hit me. I'm on like a total no print list. So my book has raised $360,000. They're not allowed to mention it because I'm on their blacklist. Kotaku, Polygon,
Bleeding Fool.
They can only do hit pieces on me.
Yeah.
You should speak up to Niche Gamer, do an interview with them. Like, they'd probably love to have you on.
Yeah.
Niche Gamer, because Niche Gamer doesn't care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, not only them, hell, if you were to speak with the guy who does the Kickstarter scams, I can't remember his name right now. He loves Earthworm Jim. He'd probably speak with you too, right? Like, it says something. It's the indie journalists that you got to speak with, right? It's the guys.
I have a working conversation with is it Oney, Oney?
Oni?
Yeah. And he's a huge Earthworm Jim fan, and he'll say, hey guys, we want to, Doug's making an Earthworm Jim book, and he's got like millions of followers, and they're just like, you can't tell people about this book, this guy, we got to scrub this guy out of existence. And then, of course, it doesn't affect my business that much, right? Because fine, those 3 to 5% of people who like, because I exist, they won't buy the book. And then 10 people will come in and buy it because they do my marketing for me. Exactly. So that's kind of, the more Kotaku hits me, the more popular I get, and that's why Kotaku won't run any more articles on me, because they end up, there's more normal people out there who'll buy it if they know about it than the kind of people that scrub ideology. But it is troubling to see, because my book, I want people who disagree with me to love this comic. So it's like, the story's for everyone. I don't have like weird secret messages in. I'm not, Earthworm Jim is not political, is not religious.
It's apolitical, isn't it?
It's a totally apolitical, and I feel like that's the genre. That's the genre of it, is kind of just silly. The making of book, the same thing. It's just I don't do what they do. I don't just hammer my ideology in and throw this woke rainbow everywhere, this Marxist rainbow everywhere. I just kind of tell stories, and I want everyone to smile. I want people to laugh.
So I mean, these same people, these same journalists, I use that term loosely, journalists.
Activists, they're activists.
Yeah, activist bloggers posing as journalists was, I was talking to someone in the chat about, they did the same, they attacked Chris Avallone, who's, he's a well-known writer on a lot of RPGs. He's worked on, was it Fallout New Vegas? He works for a lot of Obsidian projects. You know, and he said, "Oh, games need to be more apolitical," and he said, "Tell a great story. You can have a story with gay or lesbian characters, but don't make that their only characteristic or their only trait. Just tell a story." And of course, the journalists attacked him and said, "Oh, Chris Avallone's a racist, Nazi, homophobe, blah blah blah."
How am I the most bury the needle right-wing conservative evangelical? I don't believe in evolution. I think abortion's wrong. I think everyone has to follow Jesus to get to heaven, period. How is it that I'm so hateful and narrow, yet I would buy a good game about a gay character all day and have a blast with it? Why am I the only tolerant one in the room? Because I believe, and I'm even saying, I believe that life path is wrong. But I'll buy it and play it and love it all day because, and I have gay people and trans people on my YouTube channel, which is Doug TenNapel. I have them on my show all the time. We're buddies. I am commanded to just have fun with them. I absolutely love them with my life. Why am I that? And then they are like, oh, if Doug touches something, they will not just attack me, but they'll attack all of the members on my crew. So my colorist is from the UK, and they go after her and say the most hateful things about her, saying, without realizing she is like a borderline atheist, liberal, anti-Brexit, like all the politics, check them all off. And they attack her saying, you can't work on that, and I'm the one paying her bills.
Jeez.
That's what the woke SJW garbage is.
They claim that therefore tolerance, inclusivity, love and compassion.
I'm hateful and intolerant. I'm hateful and intolerant, and I am actually loving and tolerant. And they think they're loving and tolerant, and they're hateful and intolerant.
Well, they say like the liberals get the bullet too, right? Like they say liberals get the bullet too. Like they're so far left that they even hate their own side, if their own side even gives any little bit. It's terrible.
To do a spin-off Earthworm Jim comic, Earthworm Jim versus Antifa.
yeah. Antifa is trash. That was my video I put out 2 days ago just to get clicks. It worked. I put Antifa's trash, man. You want to get some subs? Just put a title like Antifa's trash. It was trending.
Oh man, it'll get you. Like, oh, say you hate, like, strong words, like you hate this or this is trash.
I do. You'll see on my videos on this last week. I saw it was trending. Kim Kardashian and Taylor Swift were trending, so I did Kim Kardashian versus Taylor Swift was my title. and I've been doing like game shows where like I'll name the stupid quote, and I have my chat guess who said the quote. Was it Kim Kardashian or Taylor Swift? And clicks just started pouring in. Oh, and because it was too offensive. YouTube demonetized that episode. We're not going to run commercials during this one.
I love it.
I mean, YouTube demonetizing is just kind of like, well,
it's par for the course now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the normal. I'm also breathing today, and YouTube also demonetized me.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's new?
Oh man, and it's funny because like YouTube is just trying to kowtow to these type of people. I think my favorite was when the CD Projekt Reds when they were working on a Cyberpunk 2020 game, or Cyberpunk 2077, I should say, which is the sequel to 2020. Yeah. And the creator came out, like the creator, who is a black man, mind you, he says, I don't care if you don't like. He's like, I don't care if you don't like it. This is Cyberpunk. This is what Cyberpunk's all about.
He said, like, don't tell me what to be offended by. Too.
Yep. You will be offended. And by the way, there's an incredible similarity between the SJWs and the leftists with the 80s evangelicals, right? Because I'm an evangelical. And back then there were political groups called the moral majority. And if they found like backwards masking or something in a rock song, they'd go like, no one buy this. And they'd have a giant boycott, you know, against a company. And so that all that happened is this is a secular evangelicalism. The SJWs are the new church ladies, and it's an atheistic church lady, but it's the same thing operating, where we must shut down and not let anyone enjoy this thing because we're offended or we disagree with it or whatever. So I saw it in the 80s, and now this is the secular progressive version of the church lady.
So Doug, I'm going to bring that even further and say there was a particular group. Now, I wasn't alive during this time. There was a particular group from the history books, and that's all I had to go by. That would burn art that they didn't agree with. They would
book burners. They were called.
They would put people in chambers that didn't agree with them or was their perfect vision.
That's right.
They mass genocided people.
That's right.
Because they didn't fit their idea of a perfect person.
Right.
And yet the people who are calling other people this particular name are the ones who are matching up with a lot of the similarity traits of this group. And that group was the Nazis.
Yeah, that group, we're told, is like, oh, that was some freak show back in 1930s, 1940. That could never happen again. This was one of the most well-educated societies on the history of the planet. Doctors, scientists, academics were the ones spreading movies around and superimposing Jews as rats and things like that. And I just think it's kind of, they're more like human nature unfettered by correct values and correct philosophy. And that's, so it is not, in the end, I believe, can you make a good philosophical statement for that what you believe is true? And usually if you listen to what they argue and what's animating behind their opinion, it's incoherent. It's not a matter of making people smarter because they were smart. It's making people good or lining them up with the truth because they were not good. And so my bigger question today is, it wasn't true 100 years ago, and it won't be true 100 years from now. So it doesn't have the marks of the kind of ideas that stand the test of time. It's very much in man's nature. I think there is something in us all that wants to just tear the other person down and dehumanize them and not see them as a human. You see people in Antifa throwing a milkshake and a brick at guys and beating people with crowbars and stuff. There's a ruthlessness to it where they're chasing them down the street even after they're clearly injured and crushed, and they want to deliver more. When I see that, I see 1944 Germany.
You can see how easy it was to like how lynchings happened in the Deep South.
Right.
You see how like this mob mentality of one person throws a milkshake, oh, someone now throws a punch, and then three people are throwing punches and beating him while he's down. Well, it's like curb stomping him.
Salem witch trials too, and that's the thing that I compare what's going on with Antifa to the most, is because you replace one word, witch and Nazi, and it's pretty much almost the exact same.
Burn them.
If you gave them a basic definition and said, which is what's this called? Well, people back then in Salem would say, oh, this is the Salem witch trials. Today, people would say, this is Antifa.
So the thing those people don't have is something that stops their hand from destroying this other person. I have values where in my Christian values it says you will love your enemy, you will heap good works on them, you will love them. Things it knows that we want to raise our standards against other people and lower them against ourselves. There's no such value in the secular left. I mean, they're just like, you evolved from animals and you're an animal and by the standard that you judge someone else, you will be judged. I mean, I have all these things that are mitigating factors. Oh, remove the grain of sand. Before you move the grain of sand from the other person's eye, remove the plank from your own eye sticking out of your head, your mindless matter colliding for no point, and that person has something you want, and go get them. Those are the kinds of things. They don't have something to hold their hand back. So no matter how, even in my greatest anger against my opponent, I just can't imagine embodying the philosophy where I ought to take his job away or physically harm him because he disagrees with, say, the Bible or something. I can't. I do know that the church had that at one time. It was in all the cultures that we're raised in, right? Like the South, when they're lynching people. Yeah. That was an entire society where they're all taught, you know, these people are animals and we own them or whatever, and that's okay. And today, you're enculturated to think if someone pisses you off on Twitter, tear them apart, tear their employment apart, go after their friends and peer pressure them and ruin them for life is what we're getting from our culture. Too, you know? Go after their fans.
Who have probably very little to do with the actual person, you know? Other than buying a thing, you know?
I mean, look at that.
I think, like, the thing is, like, I know many atheists who, who, and like myself included, who still have morals, who still like.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have backers who are wholly committed to me, who are gay married couples, who are trans, who are atheists. So, and I have, by the way, and I have Christians who are leftists who are actually saying, "Yeah, Doug, you should lose your job." So it's not. Jeez. It ideology helps because I don't think they're being consistent, but and also some very bad, despicable people who were probably racist and sexist who shot Nazis who were good guys.
I think what it is, I think it is like what you said. I think it's family values. I think it's, you know, that
this culture that you're raised in where you're trained how to treat people. And a Christian under a bad culture, we know from owning slaves, and I imagine there would be some very good family men who are also Nazis.
Father figure, whether it is two mothers, one of them being the father figure, and whether it is two fathers, one of them being the mother figure. But like having those two supporting structures, telling you right from wrong as you're growing up, kind of thing, right? Even if it is a single parent taking both roles, but at least they're telling you right from wrong, teaching you along the way. And you pick up those values.
And there's an old saying that says that you can judge a society by how it treats their prisoners. I would likewise just kind of extend that a little bit, is you can judge someone by how they treat their opposition. So if you judge me, the worst thing that I do, let's say, to a gay couple is I say, if you ask me to vote on it, I will not vote to give them gay marriage. But I've employed them all my life. I've been friends with them all my life. They're in my family. So what's the worst thing the opposition does to me? Threats of violence threaten my family, threaten unemployment, attack my employers, boycott my employers until they get rid of me, demand other people not be seen with me, or demand other trans people not work on my projects. Who's better to their opponents? And I would argue in a society, even an atheist will find a atheist who's into free speech will find me to work on my projects. I just think if you're going to demonstrate who's actually does more damage to their opposition, I know they do than I do. I hire my opponents. They try and destroy their opponent. Better place in a Christian home than anyone will in anyone's home who doesn't believe in free speech. Christian, atheist, or otherwise. And I have found a huge sanctuary among atheists who believe in free speech.
One of those things where it's like, you know what, I had different beliefs, but I don't hate on people who are Christian. I think that's perfectly their choice. That's perfectly anyone's choice to make that. But it's one of those things. It's like I still believe in the freedom of speech. I believe in people. Like I believe in doing one to other as they would do.
My career. They're my people.
I totally agree. I mean, like myself as like an atheist person myself, like I personally, like my parents, they were Christian. They grew up Christian. I had different beliefs, but like you know what, it's
King. It was an atheist who coined the phrase, I disagree with you, vehemently, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it.
Exactly.
I don't hear any leftists saying that anymore. Now it's
like, I believe like in good values are more important, and I think that I think what it is like it's very welcoming, very nice. It's like, and I think that stands out more. It's like there's a reason why somebody like Gandhi is so well recognized. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Martin Luther, it's us on the right who actually still embody that value. I hope, culturally we could all change too.
I think that the thing that makes freedom of speech work is because it's the idea of that we, and I can only speak for myself, but we may or may not be right about what we think and our ideas. And that's the thing about
getting at a deep philosophy, nerd Waffle.
I try not to, but every once in a while.
That it is in realizing that you've been wrong before, and it's possible to be wrong, and it's possible to be taught.
Freedom of speech is it's a two-way street. My beliefs might be my beliefs. Now, I believe them full-heartedly, but that doesn't mean that they, at the very end of everything, is facts.
That you want to protect the other person's free speech because they might be the one who brings you, in that humility, a truth. That I think that actually is the undergirding thing to protecting other people's free speech, even stuff that you totally disagree with. There's a level of humility that I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of the left are quite inconsistent, aren't they, with their standards of what's free speech and what isn't. Sorry, Ned Waffle, go on, continue what you were saying.
Well, for them, freedom of speech is a one-way street, and really, freedom of speech is a two-way street. It's both people are under the understanding of, to them as an individual, they are right. However, there are other people with there's over 7 billion people on this planet, each with their own individual ideas, each with their own individual creativeness and thoughts. And how do we, like, that's where freedom of speech comes in, is because that's the sorting mechanism of, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and beliefs and thoughts and ideas the same as you do.
Yeah, there's a bit of a quid pro quo packed into free speech, is that I will protect your free speech that I disagree with, implying that you will protect mine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of,
especially with things that we have no way of proving, it really doesn't matter who is right. It just matters on what you believe and your beliefs, and respecting other people because they have the same as you.
You have the same value, even though you believe different things, but you don't believe different things about the free speech thing, because that's why it's the First Amendment. It's like, it is the core to holding a society together, is the ability to protect the other person's speech.
Their idea, though, is that, like, when it becomes an issue is when it goes from speech to physicality.
Yeah.
And that's when it stops becoming speech. And that's the thing I would actually go against, is like, you stop it at speech, and like, okay, you have freedom of speech, but if someone, when it becomes a problem is when someone's like, oh, my idea is that I should beat this person up for having another idea.
That's coercion. And then that always, anytime you persecute someone else to get them to agree with you, I always smell a weakness of argument, right? Because I can't convince you of a truth, and so anyone who has to, like, come after someone's job, or if I have to manipulate you into believing what's true, then, or shun you or whatever, then I'm really saying my argument's weak. And I have a confidence in what I believe because I actually have done my homework, and I think my confidence in what I
No, I mean, like, it's fine to have a respectful disagreement.
It's my phone. I'm so sorry.
Are you okay? You all right?
It happens.
Sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm on a show, you moron.
I
believe is strong. And so I always think, like, rational debate or conversation is a better way to exchange ideas. And I don't ever want to be caught persecuting someone to get them to agree.
I'm not
It's
sure.
probably another show I'm supposed to be on.
So we're not in a rush here, but I just want to ask this because I ask all the guests that come on here. So before we get cut off or whatever, if somebody came to you and they were in the same position as you when you were starting out, and they're like, "Listen, Doug, I want to do what you do. I want to be an artist. I want to be an animator.
My people.
I want to be a badass."
Yeah.
What? And they say, just like, what advice do you have for me that can really just help me out here?
Sure.
And get me started? What would you tell them generally?
And I have tons of people in the industry that were raised on our games that are why they got into games. This is where my passion is in helping other people get in, especially the youth, to help push their career and help them out. Schooling, grinding, skill-based discipline, whether if it's coding, animation, music, whatever it is you're into. When I see someone come to me who's been, say, drawing their whole life, and there are some people who are so bad at what they do that there's no amount of help I can give them. And so to solve that right, number one, be good at what you do. And that just is hard, terrible. I know they haven't put much time into it, because I am very much like these people, right, that are asking this question, how do I do it? I was not that, it's not like I was born that good. It's like, I'm trying. Would be a damn amazing piano player. So you have to first really dedicate yourself to your craft. That's just number one. Number two is do as much as I do with the percentage of my life that I've devoted to this stuff. I think the worst person in the world would get better. I would think of someone who had no gift for piano playing, who spent as much time playing piano as I have drawn, and just pig-headed and obsessive about what I do. So I've always, like on this comic, I'm 52 years old. I'm like almost dying at this table with 4 kids over there, 4 kids and a wife that I'm neglecting outside that room. And it's because I do work on this comic. I'm doing Earthworm gym pages. I did this page. It took me 8 hours of my day. And I do this on a Saturday, I do it on a Sunday. So it's like 6-7 days a week. I'm doing 18-hour days. I don't know other people that work on their little obsession that long. And it's because I love entertaining people. I love doing great work. And I don't always see that in other people either. The commitment to the thing, to love another person enough to put on a great show. Like you guys, it's generous to put on a show. You're putting on a show right now.
We do this every week, man.
Every Wednesdays, 11 p.m. GMT, 6 p.m.
So
just to plug it again.
My audience watching this right now, and I hope you guys will follow suit and honor these guys for taking a risk and bringing me on by subscribing to this channel and spreading the link around to your friends and say, hey, this is a great show, check it out. So put on a show, work hard, be stubborn and commit to it. And that's my last thing is, nobody ever tells me no. Like, you can't stop me. I may not be able to get famous, but you can't stop me from creating all of this stuff. And even if I can only find an audience of 3 people, I would do it for them. So Earthworm Jim sold $60 million worth of games. And now on this Indiegogo, I only have 4,000 readers. And those are the people I'm obsessed with putting a show on. I'd rather make $350,000 on 4,000 people than win more fame and get millions, let's say, and get millions of people to look at it, but they don't really know or care. It's like, I'm always hunting for a great audience. And I'll recommend that to you guys on your YouTube channel too. You're in service to your audience to relieve their suffering with a little bit of distraction and make them smile or scare them or have fun or whatever. That's your job, and you're doing a service to that audience. So I think a lot of artists get into this thing is, how do I trick someone to give me money and fame? and that's not going to work. because that is putting the cart before the horse. It's, do you love the thing enough to marry yourself to that art form or that game or whatever? That's how I did what I did. Is it came from that is, I made Earthworm Jim before I was good at making, you know what I mean? Before I was paid to make Earthworm Jim, I was making stuff like that. I was in love with games, and then lo and behold, the money truck just backs up to your house and they start dumping money on you. But they don't give you the money to get good at making Earthworm Jim. That's not how it works.
We've been doing this show for over a year and a half now. So you know it's great to hear, you know, when someone says just keep going at it, because you know,
keep going at it and don't keep repeating the same mistakes. So if you see things that are not clicking with an audience, and give it time, you know, but one day if you get 1 million subs, you're going to look back on this time and go, you know why we have 1 million subs is because we didn't quit back then, and we made this change and that change, and it went in that direction, and suddenly all these people saw it. Or you'll wait for the next platform because this market might be flooded or whatever. People only have so much time. But you know, I do my own channel. I have 12,000 subs. A year ago, I had 1,000 subs, and I'd been on YouTube for I had 10 years of, I did maybe 5 episodes in 10 years. And then I started doing it every day, and I started Draw Live on the air. And I'm frustrated with how slow my subs go up. They trickle in, have a lot more fun. And maybe all you get out of this thing is your friendship and love for each other and the audience that you have now. You know, that might be it. And then, you know, tell them, every once in a while, ask them, hey, smash the like. And I would say that to your audience. And why does that mofo have 400,000 subs and he puts out crap? These guys are crap. So just number one, I would say fall in love with your own show and what you do, and you'll be a lot happier. And how kid, spread the link, tell your friends about it, and then your job is to keep putting out better and better content.
Well, we always try to put up better and better content. I mean,
good man.
That's why we got you on the show.
We got you on the show. We taught how to use OBS. You know, that's a thing right there.
You don't have me on your show until you have my kaiju helmet. I'm building up.
Oh God! Wow, we're honored. Wow.
Oh yeah, you see that? Look at that.
Cool.
Paint.
Okay, well, not to ask you, Ghidorah or Godzilla, man. Who's the better one, man?
You know, Godzilla's the good guy, so you have to throw it to him. It's kind of like, you know, Captain America's such a wuss. It's hard to like him. But you gotta still. So I'm working on because I'm 6'8", so I'm already a kaiju. So now I'm gonna start working on my costume and get some shoulder pads and some gauntlets on. I'm gonna paint this thing with poster coat over some villain who's way more cool. Red Skull, there's something wrong with you. So I got to go with Godzilla. However, I mean, that 3-head, those old movies and stuff, Ghidorah is the coolest villain in the world. I'm a huge fan of Godzilla, King of Monsters. I hate all the critics that say there's not enough human plot and stuff. If you guys said that, screw you.
Oh God! Well, they complained about the first Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla movie. They said, "Oh, there's not enough monster. You know, there's not enough Godzilla and fighting." And then this new movie has come out, and they're complaining there's not enough. Like you said, hardly any human.
My beef is, if you don't like this new Godzilla movie, you've never been a Godzilla fan.
Yeah.
So here's my theory. Let me back it up. Godzilla has always had shit plots and terrible characters. They've never name one that has a good plot. Name one that has good acting. None of them. They're all complete trash. So if this movie has any level of human drama and character, it's already better than every Godzilla movie, just on the human plot side. So that's why I'm suspect of all critics who suddenly magically come up in this movie and go, I don't like the plot, whatever. You've never been a Godzilla fan.
Yeah.
You thought it was cool because you saw a few YouTube clips and you think that's the Godzilla movie. You were never buried in it, because we've watched 30 years of just the trashiest movies ever made. And we sat there and we loved them because there were monsters breaking buildings.
So just one of the female actresses was going, "Oh, this new Godzilla movie that I'm in, it passes the Bechdel
There's
test."
A test. Yeah,
it's a feminist film. critiquing.
It has to meet certain criteria.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of them.
Something like the Bechdel test is something like that. Has to be more than 2 female characters. They interact with each other, but they're not talking about a man.
Oh,
so Mothra's a female. She counts as the female character.
It can't be saved by a male either, or something like that.
Can't be saved by a male. Heaven forbid.
I think so. Something like that, along those lines.
Yeah. So okay. So my first criteria: human acting. Who cares? Monsters knocking over buildings. Mothra, Rodan. If this is the best Godzilla movie, if you don't like the monsters in this movie, then you're not a Godzilla fan. So on those criteria, screw all the critics. This is best picture. To a Godzilla fan, this is best picture.
Oh man, I love it.
Prove me wrong.
It's funny too, because there's a few movies that came out in
Breaking Buildings. I've never seen better monster effects work in a Godzilla movie. So I've seen better stuff in other movies, but as far as like Ghidorah coming in, biting Godzilla,
I really enjoyed that. Just didn't get anything said by the critics or anything. Like critics like, let's look at Bumblebee. Bumblebee was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And like shit Michael Bay movies. Like before that, they were crap. Yeah. And the critics were all like, oh my god, the CGI is great. The Transformers movies, they're just great by Michael Bay. And then fans are like, they're shit. They're absolute shit. And then Bumblebee comes out, and it's like flatline. It's like nothing, you know?
Yeah. Well, Bumblebee was it was Iron Giant. I watch them all with my kids, right? So I'm not a Transformers fan. So that's the difference. I'm an authority on Godzilla, not on Transformers.
Not Transformers.
Transformers is shite, but my kids are crazy about Transformers. My wife and I saw the second one where the guy had the clanging. I get it, but those are awful plots. Those are awful movies, and Bumblebee is probably the best of them all. But that's That's like kind of saying you're the best cook in England.
Well, I mean,
sorry, Flatt. A drive-through in Colorado. What a trash movie.
No, I'm an '80s Transformers fan.
Yeah, see, you're plugged into that toy line, and when you saw that movie, the explosions and stuff, whatever else.
He often says that. He often says, "I'm the best cook in England."
Well, that's like you're the best insult comic. You're the best insult comic in Canada.
I think my wife would disagree with that.
Okay.
With me being a good cook.
I'm just trying to start World War III on your show.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? What we'll do is we'll get one, like a person from every one of the major countries in the world, like right here. we'll see what happens.
The United Nations.
We'll do the anti-UN. We'll break us all up again.
I completely get it. It's one thing, because I was speaking with I remember I remember this like something we brought up with Mahler is because I was like, I like watching his movie reviews sometimes. It's like he brought up a piece. He said, okay, like for people who don't like the Marvel movies, I get it, because it's like they're not proper adaptations of the comics.
Yeah,
and then that's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of a specific type of genre from the comics. It doesn't feel like a proper adaptation at times, and you're like,
yeah. So Switch. That is an example of the big difference. Is Godzilla was made for fans, and the
adaptations for me, at least from the comics that I enjoyed. And it's just like, and then he said, but like they're well written stories. I'm like, to a degree, I kind of agree they are sometimes, but like it is for somebody who's like who's more of a fan of
the movies. Were not. They were made for everyone. And so you wouldn't have all those movies if they didn't say, look, we got to get our head out of the comic book and just make a rip-roaring blockbuster movie. If they did that with Godzilla, it might have secured that franchise better. And instead, I think they actually made a movie for the fans. And then lo and behold, everyone else is way into the backwoods of, it failed as a movie for everyone. In a way that, like, I've read some comics. Obviously I make books, but I was never into like the lore and accuracy of did Iron Man, is he the right skin color? Is he the right kind? Does he have the right drink? I don't give a flying rip, man, when they're just throwing awesome fights on screen and stuff. So I'm much more with like the everyman fan, everyman consumer on that, and not the knob. I think it would be a disaster to make those movies like knobbish for all those comic book fans.
I don't hate people who enjoy the movies.
Yeah.
But it is like the thing is, I'm also part of that kaiju part of thing. Like I'm waiting for my Pacific Rim Godzilla crossover to finally happen.
Well, Godzilla versus King Kong will be very interesting to see. I didn't like the new King Kong Skull Island one.
I enjoyed it, but like it wasn't as enjoyable as like the original King Kongs.
Oh
like,
no,
I
thought Peter Jackson's King Kong, as obscene as it is much better than Skull Island was.
Well, Peter Jackson's was a callback like the 1930s one. That's why it's
totally obscene, just awful Peter Jackson stuff. But I go like, look at there's 3 T-Rexes all hanging on strings, swinging around.
The thing is, if you watch the 1930s ones, it's just as ridiculous as the Peter Jackson one is. That's what makes me love it so much.
Yeah. That movie is horrifying, that first one, because I just go, I can't imagine being someone back in that time watching that in a theater, because it is so aggressive effects-wise. It is amazing. That first King Kong is phenomenal.
But anyway, I actually have to step out myself. But you guys continue on the podcast because you guys sound like you're having a rip roaring.
When can I go? I have to go.
If you need to, if you do,
we can close out now if you want to.
Yeah. So. I was gonna say because
we end the show. I just need to go. And I'm going like, come on, guys. Has it been an hour and a half?
It has been an hour and a half.
It's come up to about an hour. Yeah.
It's actually longer than we normally do.
Does it count that I've been on the show with you now that I've been here with you for an hour and a half?
It does. It does. Like
we have a certain time frame that you have to meet.
4 hours, Doug. It's a 4
something like that. But you can do it in sections. So
I didn't realize we're doing a smaller thing now. Rather, we're doing 4-hour streams.
Okay, I think I've done a appropriate amount of time for a show to be considered a official guest of that episode. Yes. I will gladly come on your show another time if you want me back on and invite me again, and we'll do it. So it's
last
not
minute.
Like this is not the only hit you're going to get at me.
we have
we'll have to do a whole episode on King Kong and and Godzilla.
Yeah, if you guys want to ever send me a link or something to say, Doug, go watch this movie, we might do something on it. I'll almost always tell you no. That's my other thing. That's my new thing is when I'm working on this comic and I'm in the middle of production, I just start telling everyone no, with no regret at all. But I do keep sending the same people links on my show, and they just keep ignoring me. Like I keep like famous comic guys and stuff, or I'm friends with Michelle Malkin. I keep sending her links to my show to come on as a guest. She won't come on. I just keep sending them a link. So just keep sending me a link, and one of these days I'll click it and I'll get in. But
he's in, yay!
I love you. I think you guys, you have one of the better shows.
Oh, thank you.
You're one of the better groups of guys because I come on other shows, and let's face it, they're a little more like mentally unstable and unappealing than you guys are.
Well, we're glad we can hide it well.
I think you guys, all 3 of them stand up and they're wearing tutus. Yeah.
No one stand. No one stand.
No,
we're gonna do that, but don't do that.
Yeah.
No, I do assure you that this show actually.
Unfriend. Swipe right. Swipe right. All right, guys, I'm gonna jump. God bless you guys.
Nerd Waffle was always wrong.
I'm going back to work.
Ran a little longer than we normally run it. What happened was, I think we just got into the groove and we kind of just kept going.
Yeah, I like arguing too. If you want to come up with a subject matter that we can debate on, I'll come and scream and just.
Captain Canuck is better than Captain America.
So thank you.
I'm gonna peace out, guys.
You're out as well, Switch.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Take it easy, Switch. Well, how about that? That was an awesome show. We're still running, by the way.
God bless you guys.
All right, take care.
I'll throw the link again when it goes up. See you guys.
All right, take care, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show.
He's gone. Oh, that was absolutely awesome.
The show anyway.
Yeah,
it's
just about the hour mark. So thank you to all of the usual Flatt Pack viewers that drop by and watch us, and also thank you to all the fans or followers of Doug as well for coming by, checking out the show. Again, the Flatt Pack Show It's every Wednesdays, 11 p.m. GMT, which is
6 p.m. New York time.
Is that Eastern or Eastern?
Yeah, Eastern Standard Time. If Doug ever watches the end of this show, I wanted to tell him before he left. Thanks for coming on, and he's a great guy, and I really appreciate his work over the years. And hopefully we can get him back on sometime or something. Great guy.
6 p.m. Eastern, so that's about 5 p.m. CST. I think it's about an hour back. But yeah, so every Wednesdays, it's me, Flattmeister. We've got Switchpoint, who just left. We've got Nerd Waffle here.
Remember to keep it toasty.
And we've also got Crumplepoint, who hails from Scotland. He unfortunately isn't able to make these past few episodes. But yeah, there's Crumplepoint as well. All of the guys of the Flatt Pack have their own YouTube channels and Twitter. Go follow them. I think they are the same as their on-camera names. So you got Switchpoint, Nerd Waffle, and Crumplepoint. They're all the same with their YouTube channels and their Twitter. So yeah, with that, it's been the Flatt Pack Show. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll catch you next Wednesday. I need to get in the habit of making more videos as well.
Me too.
Yeah,
and we should make some that aren't like really randomized 5-minute clips of us messing up in video games and really crazy Gary's mod.
Yeah. So with that, we'll catch you in the next episode, everyone. Take it easy. Toasty!